I knew something was wrong when Kale wouldn't hold my hand. It was our engagement night. The ballroom was glowing. Crystal lights, soft music, families smiling. This was supposed to be the night he marked me officially. The night we became permanent. And yet, he kept looking toward the entrance, like he was waiting for someone else. I told myself I was overthinking. I always trusted him. Kale Varelli, my alpha, my fiancé, the man who said, "You're the only Omega I'll ever choose." I believed him. That was my first mistake. When the doors opened, the room quieted. At first I thought it was another investor, another late guest. Then I saw him, a male Omega, younger than me, soft features, nervous, and his hand was resting on his stomach. Not casually, protectively. Kale went still beside me. Then, he stepped away from me and walked toward him. I felt it before I understood it. That strange shift in scent. That sharp tension in the air. My stomach dropped. No, no, not tonight. Kale took the microphone. Everyone smiled, expecting a romantic speech. "I have something important to share," he said. His voice didn't shake. Mine did. He reached for the other Omega's hand and held it in front of me, in front of everyone, and said the words that split my world in half. "He's carrying my child." The music stopped. The room froze, and I swear I heard my own heartbeat echo in my ears. Someone gasped. Someone whispered. My father stood abruptly, but I couldn't move, because I was trying to understand how 3 weeks ago, Kale slid a ring onto my finger, and today, he was holding someone else. The Omega beside him looked overwhelmed, like this wasn't how he imagined this moment either. But Kale looked relieved, like he had finally dropped a burden. And I realized I was the burden. "He found out recently," Kale continued. "I wanted to be honest. Honest. At our engagement party. In front of both families. In front of business partners. In front of the entire world. Honest." My vision blurred for a second. Not because I was weak, but because humiliation burns. It burns differently than anger. Anger is loud. Humiliation is silent. Kale finally looked at me, and I searched his face for guilt, for hesitation, for anything. I found none. Only resolve. He had decided this before tonight. This wasn't impulse. This was planned. He knew about the pregnancy before he proposed. He proposed anyway. My chest tightened. Not because he loved someone else, but because he chose power over me. The baby meant an heir. An heir meant security. He didn't need a strong Omega beside him anymore. He needed a child. Whispers started spreading. Investors calculating. Family members murmuring. This wasn't just romance. Our engagement wasn't just love. My family owns nearly half of his company. Without this marriage, he doesn't get control. That's why he proposed. That's why this hurts more. I wasn't just replaced emotionally. I was replaced strategically. I felt every eye in the room on me, waiting for tears, waiting for a breakdown, waiting for me to scream. And I almost did, because it hurt. It hurt so badly I could barely breathe. But something inside me shifted. Not cold yet. Not calculated yet. Just aware. If I cried here, he wins. If I beg, he wins. If I collapse, he wins. And I refused to let the man who humiliated me in front of everyone win. I stepped forward. My legs felt heavy. My heart felt shattered. But my voice? Steady. "Congratulations," I said. The entire room went quiet again. Kale blinked. He didn't expect that. Neither did I. I turned to the other Omega. "You must be overwhelmed." He nodded slightly. He looked scared. I almost pitied him. Almost. Because he doesn't know yet what he just stepped into. Then I looked back at Kale. "You could have told me." His jaw tightened. I didn't know how. That lie hurt more than the announcement. You knew enough to plan this? I replied softly. The words weren't loud, but they cut, because now people were connecting dots. 3 weeks ago he proposed. 3 weeks ago the pregnancy was discovered. 3 weeks ago he locked in merger documents. He didn't plan a wedding. He planned leverage. And now, he thinks he secured it. I removed the engagement ring. Slowly. The sound of it hitting the champagne table echoed louder than the announcement. Gasps again. Since honesty matters, I said calmly. Let's be clear. My father's eyes locked with mine. Waiting. Without this engagement, I continued, my family will reconsider all support. The room shifted. That was the first time fear flickered in Cale's eyes. Because now, he understood. He didn't just humiliate me. He destabilized himself. He grabbed my wrist lightly. Don't do this. There it was. Panic. Finally. You already did, I whispered. I pulled my hand away, and for the first time since the announcement, I didn't feel shattered. I felt awake. He thought the pregnancy secured his future. He forgot something. I am not just an Omega. I am power too. And if he wants to replace me, he's about to learn what losing me costs. The party ended early. No music. No laughter. No engagement photos. Just whispers. Cale tried to leave with Cashin. I didn't stop him, but my father did. Stay, he said quietly. That wasn't a request. It was authority. Cale hesitated, then nodded. Cashin looked uncomfortable, out of place, like he had stepped into a room that was never meant for him, which he had. We moved into the private lounge. Just the four of us. Me, Cale, Cashin, my father. The air felt heavier than before. No audience now. No champagne. No performance. Just truth. My father spoke first. You proposed to my son knowing another Omega was carrying your child? Direct. Sharp. No room to twist words. Cale didn't answer immediately. That silence told me everything. Yes, I said quietly. I think he did. Cale's eyes snapped to mine. I was trying to manage the situation. Manage. Like I was a contract. Like Cashin was a complication. Like the pregnancy was a strategy. 3 weeks ago, I continued, you said you couldn't imagine a future without me. His jaw tightened. I meant it. While you were sleeping with him? Silence again. Cashin flinched slightly. That's when I looked at him properly. Not as a rival. As a person. You didn't know about the proposal, did you? I asked. His eyes widened. You proposed. Cale inhaled sharply. Cashin, this isn't. You said you ended things, Cashin whispered. There it was. The first crack. Cale looked cornered, because now both Omegas were staring at him. And neither of us looked weak anymore. You told me he was political, Cashin continued softly. That the engagement was just temporary. Temporary. My chest tightened. So that was the story he fed him. I wasn't a partner. I was leverage. My father's voice turned colder. You intended to marry my son while raising another Omega's child? Cale straightened. I intended to protect the company. There it was again. The company. Not love. Not family. Not bond. Control. I finally laughed. It wasn't hysterical. It wasn't loud. It was tired. You don't love either of us, I said quietly. He looked offended. That's not true. Then who did you choose tonight? I asked. Silence. Because tonight he chose optics. He chose an heir. He chose pressure from his mother. He chose strategy. He didn't choose me. Cashin looked pale now. You said I was your future, he murmured. Cale ran a hand through his hair. I was trying to secure stability. You were trying to secure power, I corrected. And this time, he didn't deny it. My father stood. If this engagement dissolves, he said calmly, so does our support. That was simple, clear. No technical explanation needed. Without my family's backing, Cale loses majority control. Everyone in that room understood that. Cale looked at me. This is emotional, he said. You're reacting. That word again. Reacting. I stepped closer. You humiliated me in front of everyone. He swallowed. I didn't mean to. You did? I cut in softly. Because you could have told me privately. He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. If he told me privately, I might have walked away quietly. Instead, he wanted to control the narrative publicly. He wanted to make the pregnancy look like destiny, and me look optional. Cashin suddenly spoke. Did you plan to leave him? Cale looked frustrated now. Of course not. Then what was the plan? Cashin asked. And that question hit harder than anything else. Because there was no clean answer. Marry me. Use my family. Raise Cashin's child. Control everything. That was the plan. And now both of us could see it. I removed the bracelet he gave me last week. Placed it on the table beside the ring. You don't get both, I said quietly. You don't get power and loyalty. Cale looked shaken for the first time. You're overthinking this. No, I said calmly. I'm finally seeing clearly. Cashin stepped back slowly. You lied to me, he said. Cale reached for him. He pulled away. That moment, that tiny movement, told me everything. Cale wasn't losing one Omega. He was losing two. And this time, he had no one to blame but himself. Later that night, Cale called me. Over and over. I didn't answer. He left one message. I can fix this. I listened to it twice and realized something important. He didn't say, I'm sorry. He said, I can fix this. He still thought this was damage control. Still thought this was strategy. Still thought I would bend. That was his final mistake. Because the hurt, it was still there. Heavy, sharp, humiliating. But something else was growing beneath it. Not rage. Not revenge. Resolve. He thought announcing another Omega's pregnancy would secure his future. He forgot something. Without me, he has nothing to stand on. And I'm done being the foundation he walks over. The first clip went viral at 9:12 a.m. It was short, 23 seconds. Cashin standing outside Cale's building. Pale, shaking, surrounded by cameras. And one sentence. I didn't know he proposed after I found out I was pregnant. That was it. Nothing dramatic. No screaming. No attack. Just truth. And truth destroys faster than scandal. By noon, every headline read the same. CEO candidate proposed while secretly expecting child with another Omega. Not romantic. Not complicated. Just deceitful. My phone didn't stop vibrating. Friends, relatives, journalists, but the message that made me pause came from an unknown number. It was Cashin. I didn't mean to make it public. They kept asking. I just answered. I stared at the screen. He hadn't done it for revenge. He did it because he was cornered. Because Cale told two different stories, and both collapsed under light. Cale showed up at my apartment an hour later. He looked nothing like the alpha from the engagement party. No confidence. No composure. Just fury barely contained. You talked to him, he accused immediately. I didn't, I replied calmly. He wouldn't do this unless you pushed him. That's the thing about men like Cale. When control slips, they look for someone else to blame. He did it because you lied, I said evenly. You humiliated him too, he scoffed. This was supposed to be handled privately. No, I corrected softly. It was supposed to be handled honestly. That word again. Honesty. The thing he avoided until it exploded. He ran a hand through his hair. You think this makes you win? I didn't answer right away, because this wasn't about winning. It was about clarity. You didn't choose him, I said quietly. You didn't choose me. You chose Image. He stared at me, like I had said something he didn't want to admit to himself. Another headline notification buzzed across his phone. He glanced at it, and I saw the color drain from his face. Major investors request emergency review of leadership stability. That's when it hit him. Not emotionally, practically. The pregnancy wasn't the issue. The proposal wasn't the issue. The lie was, no one trusts a leader who lies under pressure. And now the entire world knew he lied to both Omegas. Later that afternoon, Cashin posted again. Not dramatic. Not theatrical. Just a statement. I was told the engagement was temporary and strategic. I was not told it was real. I deserve honesty. Simple. Human. Devastating. Because it removed rivalry. There was no fight between Omegas. No jealousy narrative. Just two people who were misled by the same alpha. And suddenly, Kale looked less like a romantic caught in a complicated situation, and more like a manipulator. That night, Kale called me again. I answered this time. What do you want? He asked. His voice wasn't angry. It was tired. I want you to understand something, I said calmly. You didn't lose me because of the pregnancy. Silence. You lost me because you thought I would stay quiet. He exhaled sharply. I panicked. No, I corrected gently. You calculated. That hurt him more than shouting would have. Because deep down, he knew it was true. Cashin won't survive this pressure, he said suddenly. That made me pause. You're worried about him? I'm worried about the baby, he snapped. And for the first time, I saw something real in his eyes. Not power, not strategy, fear. But it wasn't fear of losing us. It was fear of losing status. Then you should have protected him, I said softly. Instead of using him. He went quiet. Again. The next morning, the board made it official. Not removal. Not yet. But temporary step back from CEO confirmation. That's how they phrased it. Temporary. But everyone knew what it meant. Trust once cracked doesn't seal easily. Investors don't like instability. And Kale had become unstable. Not financially, emotionally, publicly. Cashin sent me one final message. I didn't want to be your enemy. I replied with one sentence. You never were. Because the truth? He wasn't the one who replaced me. Kale replaced himself. The moment he chose deception over respect. That evening, Kale stood outside my building again. No cameras this time. No press. Just him. And when I stepped outside, he didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He asked one question. Is there anything I can do? I looked at him carefully. And for a second, the hurt flickered again. Because once upon a time, I loved this man. But love doesn't survive humiliation. And trust doesn't rebuild under calculation. Yes, I said finally. There is. He stepped closer. Hope flashing briefly in his eyes. Step down publicly, I continued. Admit you lied. The hope vanished. That will end me. I held his gaze. You ended yourself. And for the first time, he had no argument. As he walked away, I realized something. I didn't feel broken anymore. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. He thought an heir would secure his legacy. Instead, his legacy became betrayal. And the worst part? It wasn't me who destroyed him. It wasn't Cashin. It was his own need to control everything. Now the question wasn't whether he would fall. It was how far. Kale scheduled the interview at 7 p.m. Prime time. He thought he could fix it. One controlled conversation. One emotional apology. One narrative shift. He thought he could regain sympathy. He underestimated how fragile trust becomes once cracked. The studio lights were bright. Too bright. He sat across from the host, composed, practiced. I made mistakes, he began smoothly. But personal matters should not destroy professional leadership. There it was. The shift. He wasn't apologizing for betrayal. He was minimizing it. I was under pressure, he continued. Expectations. Family demands. It was complicated. Complicated. That word again. He still refused to say the truth clearly. I lied. Instead, he softened it. I never intended to hurt anyone, he added. And then he made his second mistake. Some people reacted emotionally instead of privately resolving it. The host tilted her head. Are you referring to your fiancé? Cale hesitated. Just slightly, but enough. I think certain reactions escalated things unnecessarily. There it was. Blame. Soft. Subtle. But deliberate. He was trying to paint me as unstable. Emotional. Overreacting. Again. Then the unexpected happened. The studio door opened. Not dramatically. Not violently. Just quietly. And Cashin walked in. The cameras caught it instantly. The host blinked in surprise. Cale's composure shattered. What are you doing here? He hissed under his breath. Cashin didn't sit. He stood, hands trembling, but eyes steady. I asked for this time, he said softly. The room went silent. The host leaned forward. Are you here to respond? Cashin nodded. I'm not here to fight, he said. I'm here because I won't let him blame someone else. Cale's jaw tightened. This isn't necessary. It is, Cashin replied. And then, he looked directly into the camera. I knew about the pregnancy, he said clearly. I did not know about the proposal. The air changed. Cale went still. I was told the engagement was political, temporary. I believed him. He swallowed. He told me he would handle it before making anything public. The host's eyes widened slightly. So you're saying you were misled? Cashin nodded. Yes. No screaming. No theatrics. Just clarity. Cale tried to interrupt. This is being twisted. No, Cashin said firmly for the first time. It's not. That firmness surprised everyone, including Cale. You told me he understood, Cashin continued. You told me he agreed. The silence after that sentence was heavy. Because now, there was no triangle, no rivalry, just one alpha who told two different stories. Cale leaned forward. Do you understand the pressure I was under? Cashin looked at him. Long. Tired. You were under pressure, he said softly. But you put that pressure on both of us. And that was the moment sympathy died. The host turned to Cale. Did you knowingly propose after learning about the pregnancy? He hesitated. That hesitation lasted 1 second too long. Yes, he said finally. The word echoed. Clean. Sharp. Recorded forever. Why? She asked. Cale exhaled. I thought I could manage both situations. Manage. Not love. Not honesty. Manage. And everyone watching understood what that meant. Control. I watched the interview from home. Calm. Not shaking anymore. Not crying. Just observing. This wasn't revenge. This was consequence. Cashin spoke one final time. I don't hate him, he said quietly. But I won't let him say this happened because someone overreacted. His voice softened. It happened because he didn't tell the truth. The cameras cut to Cale. He looked smaller. Not physically, but socially. His authority wasn't loud anymore. It was questioned. And once authority is questioned publicly, it weakens permanently. The next morning, the decision came. Short, simple, final. Cale would formally step down from leadership candidacy. No dramatic announcement. No fireworks. Just a statement. Due to personal matters and loss of investor confidence. Loss of confidence. That was the key. He didn't lose because of pregnancy. He lost because no one trusted him anymore. That night, he came to see me again. No cameras. No audience. Just us. "You won," he said quietly. There was no anger in his voice. Just exhaustion. I shook my head slowly. This wasn't about winning. Then what was it about? He asked. Respect. Silence. "You never respected either of us," I continued. He looked down. For the first time, he didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He didn't blame pressure. He didn't blame emotion. He just stood there, alone. And I realized something strange. I didn't hate him. I just didn't need him anymore. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. Not dramatically, just firmly. "You chose power," I said softly. "Now live with it." And that was worse than shouting, because there was no anger left, only absence. As he walked away, I felt something unexpected. Not revenge. Not triumph. Freedom. He thought announcing another Omega's pregnancy would secure his legacy. Instead, it exposed his character. And character is something no air can fix. The apology came 3 days later. Public. Carefully written. Carefully timed. I take full responsibility for the hurt I caused. I read it once. Then I closed my phone. Because apologies mean nothing when they arrive after consequences. He didn't apologize when he proposed. He didn't apologize when he announced the pregnancy. He apologized when he lost power. That's not remorse. That's damage control. Cashin left the city quietly. No statement. No interview. No fight. Just one final post. "I hope my child grows up around honesty." It wasn't dramatic, but it was devastating. Because that sentence said everything Cale failed to be. 2 weeks later, Cale asked to see me. One last time. I almost didn't go. But closure isn't for them. It's for us. We met at the cafe where he first confessed to me. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. He looked thinner, quieter, less alpha. When he saw me, he stood. Habit. Respect. Too late. "I never meant for it to end like this," he said softly. I sat down across from him. "It didn't end because of the pregnancy," I replied. "It ended because you thought I would stay." He looked at his hands. "You were always stronger than I expected." That made me pause, because that was the real truth. He didn't underestimate the board. He didn't underestimate the press. He underestimated me. "I can step away completely," he said suddenly. "Transfer shares. Publicly endorse you. Fix it. Fix it." That word again. "You can't fix respect once it's gone," I said calmly. He looked up. "There has to be a way back." There wasn't. Not because I was cruel. Not because I was bitter. But because I finally understood something. Love without respect is control. And I refuse to be controlled. "You don't hate me?" he asked quietly. If he needed hatred to justify this, he would never understand. "No," I said honestly. "I just don't choose you anymore." That landed harder than anger ever could. Because hate keeps connection alive. Indifference ends it. He leaned forward slightly. "I was scared," he admitted. "Of what?" I asked. "Losing control." And there it was. The simplest explanation of everything. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of losing power. So he tried to secure both. And lost both. "I loved you," he said. "I know," I replied. "And that's why this hurts." Silence stretched between us. Not tense. Just final. He reached across the table. Not to grab. Not to demand. Just instinct. I stood before he could touch me. And that was the last shift. The final line. "You don't get to come back from this," I said gently. He nodded slowly. He knew. A week later, the board made it official. He was no longer in consideration for leadership. Not dramatic, not explosive, just a quiet removal. Investors stabilized. The company moved forward. And I didn't celebrate. I didn't announce victory. I simply continued. Because real power doesn't scream. It stands. The last message he ever sent me was simple. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Not because I needed the last word, but because silence is sometimes the strongest answer. Months passed. The scandal faded. The headlines moved on. But the lesson stayed. He thought an heir would secure his legacy. He thought replacing me would strengthen his position. He thought I would stay quiet. Instead, he exposed himself. He lost trust. He lost leadership. He lost both Omegas. Not because I destroyed him, but because he built his future on deception. And deception collapses under light. I loved him once. That's the truth. But loving someone doesn't mean staying when they choose power over you. And I will never shrink myself to make an alpha feel secure again. If he wanted control, he should have respected the Omega who stood beside him. Now he stands alone, and I stand stronger.